Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brendan Ryan. I'm the Director of Social Care and Social Work at Hayes, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to the call today. Thank you so much for finding the time to join us. We publish our social care salary and recruitment trends guide annually, and this year's report is drawn from recent salary data and responses from hundreds of professionals across both the social care and the social work sector. And over the course of the next hour, I'll share some of this year's headlines from the report, followed by a group discussion with our panel of guest speakers, delving into the findings of our report and taking questions from you. So please do get involved. If you've got any questions as the session progresses, please drop them into the chat or the Q&A function that you can see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to get around to all of the questions that you submit as we go along. Okay. So let me welcome our guest speakers, and I want to thank them all for taking part today. We've got really strong representation from across the care sector. And without any further ado, let me introduce them on an individual basis to you. So first of all, we've got Rachael Dodgson, CEO at Dimensions. Good afternoon, Rachael.
Good afternoon. Sorry, taking myself off mute. Good afternoon.
Okay. Now, Rachael's worked in social care for over 30 years. She's a qualified social worker and has held a diverse range of roles, including a number of different posts during her 13 years at the social care regulator, where she concluded as the head of adult social care policy. She became CEO of Dimensions in 2022 and is passionate about ensuring people have choice and control over their lives, as well as raising the profile of social care as a sector. Joining Rachael, we've got Amanda Cunningham, who's the CEO of Horizon Care and Education. Good afternoon, Amanda.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us, Amanda. Now, Amanda has over 34 years of experience in social care, both within the NHS and the private healthcare sector. She's held many senior leadership roles across the care sector, managing multi-site care services, and has commissioned a range of complex services, including general nursing, dementia care, residential care. Amanda fosters a compassionate and a collaborative culture at Horizon, enabling children and young people to fulfill their potential. Next, we've got Angela Boxall, who's the CEO of Majesticare. Good afternoon, Angela.
Good afternoon, Brendan.
Thanks for joining us. So Angela is a respected leader across the social care sector, known for her forward-thinking and innovative approach. Angela is committed to changing the perceptions of social care, encouraging younger generations to consider it as a career. Angela's involved in several initiatives which many people may know, including being a committee member for the Championing Social Care and chair of the Care Sector Fundraising Pool. And most recently, Angela's been newly appointed as the chair of Care England, for which we at Hayes extend our congratulations. So thanks for joining us, Angela. Last but not least, we have Jayne Stutt, who is the Chief People Officer at Priory. Good afternoon, Jayne.
Afternoon, Brendan.
Now, people will know Priory is a leading provider of mental health care and adult social care across the UK. Previous to working with Priory, Jayne worked in social housing and local government before joining Priory in 2013 as the HR Director for their Older People's Division, progressing to the HR Director of their newly formed Adult Care Division in 2017, and most recently progressing to the Chief People Officer in 2022. So Jayne's led on the development and the implementation of Priory's people strategy, focusing on workforce and leadership development and creating an open and inclusive culture. So really pleased with all of our panelists for being able to join us today. And I think we've got as I said earlier, a really strong representation of the sector for the debate that hopefully we get into quite quickly. Before we get to that, I'm going to take you through some of the findings from our survey. It's quite statistical, so bear with me as we go, and we'll get to the debate as quickly as we can. So, on to some of the findings. So, to gauge the outlook on the employment market, we asked employers what challenges they expect to face in the year ahead. And within social care, employers expect the biggest external challenge to be related to the rising cost of living. 74% of respondees said that. Second to that in external challenges was recruiting the right talent, which was really high at 71%. And third came in as the current economic environment, 45% of employers stating that as the third biggest external challenge. Internally, the biggest issue employers expect to face is talent retention, 69%, followed by skill shortages at 47%, and third, the ability to manage change at 40%. So perhaps unsurprisingly then, our survey shows that employer optimism has declined this year. Only 30% of employers feel optimistic about the wider economic climate and its potential impact on social care over the next 3 to 5 years. And this is down quite significantly from last year, where it was 39%. That said, the drop in optimism isn't having an impact on an organisation's appetite to hire and grow, with hiring plans remaining robust. 92% of social care employers expect to recruit staff in the next 12 months. 83% expect to recruit on a permanent basis, with 34% expecting to recruit temporary staff in the year ahead. And this compares really positively to the wider economy, where across the UK overall, 77% of employers are looking to recruit in the year ahead. So social care, certainly from a recruitment perspective, remains a very buoyant sector. Against the backdrop of the increased hiring plans, organisations are citing the shortage of suitable applicants. 83% of organisations cite this as their top hiring challenge in the year ahead, which points to an increased competition across the sector as we head into the next 12 months. So what about the salaries? So our survey returned quite a bit of data on salaries, and the rise in cost of living over the last year, along with last April's increase in the national minimum wage, has resulted in many employers increasing the pay of their staff, not surprisingly. Within social care, salaries rose by an average of 4.9%, which was a slight increase on the previous year. The highest salary rises came from children's care providers, where we saw an 8.4% increase, followed by adult social care, which increased by 5.1%. Specifically within children's social care, along with the ongoing and increased competition for support workers, a shortage of registered managers, and especially those with experience, is driving a significant salary increase at that role level. And within adult social care, organisations are increasing pay for senior support workers at a greater rate, given the shortage of professionals at that level. Across both adult and social work, where the overall salary increase was less than in the care sector, the highest pay increases have been for newly qualified social workers, closely followed by social workers who have 2+ years experience post-qualification. And all this has been driven by skill shortages, which are still being widely felt. In social care, 97% of employers faced skill shortages over the last year. As employers continue to struggle to find and retain individuals with the right skill sets, organisations are evolving a broad range of approaches to set themselves up for success, not only for today, but also for the future. For example, over half, 52% of employers are actively hiring workers over the age of 50. Over 2/5, 43%, are actively hiring those under the age of 30. And in the last 12 months, 39% of employers actively sought workers from overseas. And for me, it's pleasing to see that these areas of focus have grown significantly over the last 12 months, with last year's survey showing that only 34% of organisations targeted specific demographics. So it's clearly change happening. Also, being less focused on specific skills and experience when hiring can help employers to overcome skill shortages. Our research shows 88% of employers in social care would be likely to hire a professional lacking all the required skills with the intention of upskilling them. We're seeing a clear shift towards organisations becoming talent creators, not just talent consumers. To help them upskill, employees in social care would prefer that their employer allowed time during working hours to complete training, more investment in training generally, and time to attend relevant talks or conferences that might help their professional development. Moving on to the next slide now. Having touched on employer optimism, let's have a closer look at what employees' intentions are in the year ahead. 52% of employees responding to our survey plan to move jobs in the year ahead, and this is a decrease from 61% who plan to do the same this time last year. And this shows that the higher mobility that we saw post-COVID has started to ease. The rising cost of living has impacted on employee decisions to move jobs. Some are more inclined to move jobs because their current salary doesn't cover the living expenses. But on the other hand, we are seeing candidates who are less inclined to move because they value the job security. Okay. On balance, however, the cost of living is likely to drive more employee mobility in the year ahead, with 45% of care professionals saying that the rise in cost of living for them is making it more likely that they will move jobs, compared to 16% where it's making it less likely that they will move. Coming to the fore in this year's report is the importance that employee experience is increasingly playing in delivering successful outcomes. It's a highly competitive recruitment market at the moment, we all know that. Providing a positive employee experience to attract and retain staff, therefore, becomes more important than ever before. An employee's experience within your organisation runs all the way through from initial contact via the job application process, through to the time working with you, and even up to the last day and exit interview. However, 64% of employees in social care say that they have been deterred from continuing with the job application process because of their poor first impression of an organisation. Furthermore, 68% of employees in social care say that they've left a job because it didn't match the expectations gained during the application process. Both of these factors are well within the control of any hiring organisation and can become positive differentiators where we get them right. And we have some recommendations to share with regard to these factors a little later. So, what makes a role more appealing to candidates? Employees in social care look for job security, an engaging and supportive team culture, and a clear commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion as the top 3 factors that attract them to a particular role. Professionals are also they look out for an organisation's purpose and the commitment to sustainability when assessing a new role. All of this contributes to your employee value proposition, or EVP. And a good EVP is a really clear and consistent message about the experience of working within your organisation to help employees understand what's best about working for you. However, what our survey shows is that 45% of employees in social care don't believe that their current organisation's EVP aligns with their own experience working there. Clearly a big issue. Flexible working continues to feature prominently, and to strike the right balance for flexible working, employees in social care want their organisation to build a culture where employees feel safe in sharing their views on the ways of working. 72% of employees responded to that effect. Regularly celebrate employee achievements, regardless of where they're working, whether they're present or remote. And to ensure that managers are trained to effectively manage hybrid teams. Okay. So that's just a brief snapshot of the findings of our report. There's plenty more in the report, and we'll signpost you onto how you can get a copy of it at the end of this. But I'll finish my presentation with some of our recommendations on how you can find and retain staff in such a tough hiring market before moving on to a bit of a deeper dive with our guest speakers. So our first recommendation is all around your hiring process and the need to optimise your hiring processes. Professionals are being deterred from applying for jobs where organisations don't give a positive first impression. streamlining application processes where possible, and maintaining communication with job applicants through all stages of the hiring process to optimise the outcomes and avoid losing staff at the early stage. Second recommendation is to focus on values-based recruitment, focusing less on experience and qualifications and more on a professional soft skills and attitudes can help improve retention rates and lower overall hiring costs. Next, we recommend that you build local talent pools. The location of a role is becoming an increasingly important factor for professionals within the sector. With the competition for talent rising each year, employers should turn to building and curating local talent pools and help make their organisation more attractive to candidates locally. Support managers to deliver EVP. This is absolutely key. Professionals are leaving jobs if the EVP does not match their expectations set during the application process. So ensuring managers who play a crucial role in driving employee experience are properly supported and equipped to effectively portray and deliver an organisation's EVP is massively important. Okay, and finally, the importance of showcasing clear career progression. Career progression opportunities are important not only in terms of attracting prospective employees, but also retaining existing staff. So developing clear and accessible information about the skills needed to progress, the training available to drive that progression, and utilising real-world examples from your organisation to bring greater visibility on how professionals can progress is a good step forward. So that's a brief overview of our findings and recommendations. As I said before, you can access the full report and we'll share details of how at the end of this presentation. Let's now move on to the panel discussion. So I'll welcome back the panel. Thanks for sitting patiently through my slides. I'll start with an open question, but I'll direct this to Angela in the first instance. So Angela, with almost all social care employers facing skill shortages and the rising cost of living and talent retention being key challenges that have been cited, what do you believe are the main challenges that the sector needs to focus on in the year ahead?
You started with an easy question then, Brandon. Thanks for that. It's I think, look, all of us, whatever hat I'm wearing today, whether it's my Majesticare hat, my Care England hat, I think we all saw these issues coming, and the report today, you know, just supports that. I mean, some of these figures are just quite scary. You know, 52% of the workforce saying that they might leave within the next 12 months. I mean, that's more than half of the workforce. So, you know, we have to focus on making sure that that doesn't happen. I think from a Care England point of view, and obviously NCF and other, you know, independent supporters of providers will be doing the same thing. And that's about making sure that, you know, working hard to get that funding in, because money can talk, money can increase salaries, which is obviously something that people want and need. It can give providers more access and to training for the career developments. And also it helps people to look at well-being and the employer experience and putting money into that as well. Having said that, the funding's, you know, not there at the moment. So I think with my Majesticare hat on, what we have to make sure that we do is listen. And I think that, you know, the biggest thing that we can do for the teams that we work with is listen to what they want, because each generation wants a different thing. Some people don't want a career progression and you know, just want to feel happy coming to work, and we need to make sure that as providers we have a good EVP in place for them. And well-being is just so important. Making sure that even the little things, making sure that people have a proper break, making sure that people aren't working 6 12-hour shifts, that things like rotas are done to make sure people get a good work-life balance. These are things that we are in control of and we can do quite easily, but actually have such a big impact on people's well-being. You know, thank you goes a long way. but it's that word celebration that you use, Brendan. I think it's, you know, a thank you is great, and I love it when people say thank you to me and I say thank you back, but actually celebrating everybody's success, whether that's, you know, one of the residents' success, one of the family's success, one of the team's success, and having that holistic recognition for the whole home as a family is really important, because then that makes people feel part of something. And obviously security was scoring quite up there on the percentages of things that people wanted. Visibility is another thing, you know, being visible, the leaders being visible, feeling that they have a voice. One of the things that we do at Majesticare, which has really helped us. So obviously we do all of our surveys and getting teams feedback, but we have set up a couple of email addresses for the team. So one of them is called mydevelopment@majesticare.co.uk, and people can email into that if they see a course that they like, or they have an idea about where they'd like to go. Another email is Speak Out. So speak out at majesticare.co.uk. This is a tool for people to email in if they'd like to discuss something with us or tell us something. So not just from a sort of a whistleblowing safeguarding perspective, but it's an email address that they can easily access. It's easy to remember, and they can make sure that they get that information to us as quickly as possible. But the cost of living is huge. I'd like to think most providers can move towards being real living wage employers, and I think you'll probably have seen this in your report, Brendan, that is happening. But it is moving forward. But the cost of living, we are losing so many talented people that want a career in care, but have to leave because of the wages. And I'm sure that, Amanda and Jayne and Rachael have felt exactly the same things within their organisation. But make sure that your EVP actually is deliverable, that it's easy to understand, that the team have a copy of it, and that they know what they can expect. And the other thing that people want, I think, is to feel like an adult. Years ago, one of the most liberating things for me, I remember going to a conference and somebody said, and I'm sorry, Jayne, I hope you don't misunderstand me, but they said, burn your employee handbook. Burn it. Obviously, you need all your policies and your procedures and your principles and everything else that underpins it. But we should be focusing on getting the positive, moving forward, and those things are there for us if we need to. So we changed ours. So you'll be happy to know, Jayne, we do still have a handbook, but it's actually called the Book of Expectations, and it's our expectations of them and their expectations of us. And we've found that since we've been doing that, it's a much more two-way relationship, and that does really seem to have helped.
Okay. What I found really interesting there is the amount of areas you're focusing on that are completely in your control, whilst acknowledging there's obviously the funding issues and the kind of ability to impact how much money you have coming in to deliver on some of those bigger programs. Amanda, I don't know if you wanted to come in at some points there, so you come off mute.
I was just going to agree with Andrew about the EVP and the openness and transparency. It was interesting to hear about your handbook. I haven't heard of that one before. But I think it's the positive experience of the whole journey, not just from the recruitment, but we all know that when a colleague submits a resignation, there's an interview takes place to understand why. And a lot of operators, a lot of providers are influencing colleagues to stay because of financial remuneration. It shouldn't get to that stage. There should be the discussion, there should be support, supervision, L&D all around the EVP before we get to that stage. Unfortunately, we don't. And I think in this industry, in any part of the sector, whether it be education, social care, elderly, adult, children, resilience is a key thing. And a lot of our colleagues have been in the sector, like some of us, for a very long time. COVID did have a massive impact, but it's bringing that passion back into into the industry and making the awareness about what opportunities there are for all the demographics and all the positive outcomes for young people and for adults in, you know, that sort of role in that employment.
I think it's about, Amanda, is as well, it's about shining that positive light on social care. The perception of social care can be pretty rubbish. So why would people apply in the first place? Because it has a reputation of being a really hard job for really little remuneration. Put my teeth back in. Remuneration. So, you know, we as providers and as people that work within the sector have a responsibility to make sure that we champion that social care and the people that live, work and support it. So yeah, absolutely, Amanda.
No, I would agree. I think that people's understanding of looked after children who need to live in residential homes for lots of different reasons. The reference to Boxalls from days gone by, and it isn't like that. There's lots of opportunities. Our children have the opportunity to become valued members of society, have lots of opportunities that they wouldn't have in different situations. So I think it's that understanding. And it's joining sessions like this that will heighten people's awareness of all the positive work that goes on. I've learned lots of things from colleagues on this call already, even just in the preparation from the call, and lots of wonderful ideas. And I think, you know, it's key that we get that out into the sector, really.
Yeah, I'd wholeheartedly agree with that. One of the features over our last couple of years of these salary guide launches has been that need for social care reclaiming the narrative, telling its own positive stories more often, and probably increased collaboration between providers, to be frank. Yeah, but specifically around salaries and pay, and maybe one of the drivers of this, well, certainly one of the drivers of the perception of social care is this disparity in pay between social care and other sectors, and probably specifically as well between social care and the NHS. And Rachael, we know Dimensions are heavily involved in promoting equal pay between social care and the NHS. So what are your thoughts on how that pay gap can be shortened between those two sectors specifically?
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's something we've talked about a lot in Dimensions, and we have a workforce petition that is about the alignment of support worker pay as a minimum to NHS Band 3. We've had over 80,000 people sign that petition, which I think just goes to demonstrate there's a strength of support from the public there, not just in the sector. I think we all know that actually the skills are really transferable between healthcare assistants in the NHS and our support workers. I was at an event yesterday with the Fabian Society in Unison, and one of our support workers spoke very eloquently about how she gives paracetamol, other medication, her own controlled medication. Only nurses do that in hospitals. So I think we've really got to help people understand that role, that skill set, the responsibilities. This is a skilled job, you know, and I think people really appreciated throughout the pandemic as key workers, and where has some of that support gone? So what we think is really important is that alignment to NHS Band 3 for support workers the minimum, but actually as a read across as you go up the ladder. So actually if you're a lead support worker or a senior support worker, that should be Band 4. If you're a deputy manager, it's Band 5. If you're a registered manager, it's Band 6. So it's how you can translate those things across. And I think there is absolutely support for that. But as people have touched upon, funding is the key issue here. The event I was at yesterday, Wes Streeting was there, who's the Shadow Health Secretary, some people will know. And I do feel positive about Labour's commitment to the fair pay deal. You know, so they're very clear that if they get into government next, the fair pay deal for social care workers is part of their first 100-day plan. And I think there's lots of complexities in how that will happen when you're working across a sector with so many providers. But I think that commitment to the workforce is really important. And there's got to be an integrated workforce plan between health and social care. So actually, you know, we reliant upon each other for all of that to work, and a really clear pay progression framework and a career progression framework. I mean, in terms of what we've tried to do in Dimensions, 3-4 years ago, we would have one pay rise a year for our colleagues. We're now in a cycle where we do 2 pay awards a year. I guess other people might do the same. So we'll do a pay award uplift in April. But because we're then going through negotiations with commissioners in terms of what our uplifts will look like, we do a second pay award in September. But that helps with retention because our colleagues know, look, we're giving you this for now, but you will get something else later. We just need to work out what that looks like. And I think that's really helped over the last couple of years. And I think that's a cycle that we will end up in forevermore, to be honest. I can't really see that changing. And sorry, we are currently at real living wage across everywhere that we provide support to people. So all our support workers are at real living wage across the country and in London. And I'm fortunate that I've got a board who's very supportive of that. We're a not-for-profit provider. Last year we turned in a financial deficit because we wanted to go really big on pay for our workforce. This year we'll try and do the same. I don't know if we'll get to real living wage. I think as the gap between the national living wage and the real living wage gets smaller, that's going to be more and more of a challenge. But to the other points that people have made, it's what are your differentiators, because we're all doing all we can on pay. So things like we've got to manage the depreciation budget. So any manager in the company can spend up to £50, no questions asked, on a thank you for someone because they've done something brilliant. We're part of we're accredited by the Great Places to Work survey. We know that helps because people see that accreditation when they click on and look at our jobs. So it's those other things that are differentiator. But that's my view on how we need to try and tackle the pay. And I do think if we do get a Labour government, I'm not being political, their commitment to this 100-day fair pay agreement, I think will help.
Thank you, Rachel. That would be positive. It would be a positive step, wouldn't it? It's interesting that, that drive to have the social care salaries pegged to the agenda for change bandings would be a good outcome. I was just thinking back as you were talking there to previous last year's salary guide, where one of our recommendations was create internal salary bandings that allow you to allow staff to progress pay, and that was one of the big drivers of retention, which I know from speaking to different organisations who've been able to put that in place has been a successful. So I don't have a flat pay structure. I have a pay structure that's can be dynamic based upon longevity and performance. So interesting to see that you're kind of approaching that by having two different pay awards each year, which probably deliver the same output in a different way. Yeah.
And it's that certainty about your funding. You don't get in this sector, you don't get certainty about your uplifts, and it's then, well, what can we afford based on that? But I think it really does help with retention. And I think the other thing is people understand that we are doing all we can on pay in dimensions. They see the workforce petition, they know we're doing what we can, and they recognise that. So that helps people stay too.
Yeah. Sorry, Angela.
I was just going to really agree with Rachel, and I think actually it's sometimes about what people can see what you're doing as an organisation, and again, it's that transparency, isn't it? It's if people can see that you're actually doing the best for them as part of the team as you can, then actually people are automatically happier. I think what you said about obviously the gap between the real living wage and the national living wage, absolutely. We're a registered real living wage employer, and when you look at actually what it's going to do, this year is quite significant. But I think there's two things. One of them is obviously then you've got your increments for your people that are your senior carers or your care coordinators or anything else that you call it, that you need to make sure that you've got that decent gap for the increased responsibility, which again pushes everything up. But there is evidence that, and we know that the team are the backbone of all of our companies and homes, and they're the people that make the difference on the floor. So with a great team, get a good reputation, and then obviously a successful business. So I think if we take care of the people as best we can, then the business will end up taking care of itself. You just have to go through that two-year itch, Rachel, I think.
Yeah.
Rachel talked about the need to focus on differentiators beyond pay, which takes me on to my next question, which is around one of those differentiators, which is really important, which is career development. One of the things that came out of the survey this year is 85% of employers feel that there's scope for career progression for their staff. However, more than a quarter of staff don't see that same scope within the organisations that they work for. So, Jayne, I'll come to you for obvious reasons with this question. So, within the sector, do you believe there's a wide enough scope for employees to move on, not just vertically, but maybe even horizontally in terms of that professional development?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Brendan. I think there's massive scope. The problem is making it visible, and that's the challenge for us. I think we all probably organisationally have career pathways type schemes, but it's making that a reality for our colleagues in the workplace. If someone feels unchallenged or stuck in a rut, and certainly with the current cost of living crisis, that'll become coupled with pay challenges as well. Their first instinct is to look outside of the organisation often, because what they see in their local service is this ever decreasing pyramid of opportunities. For every 10 support worker roles, there's maybe only 1 or 2 senior roles, and then maybe only 1 deputy role. And unless you're able to have greater visibility of what other opportunities are available to you, you might be thinking that your only option is to go elsewhere. And I think it was Amanda made the point about then you get into this cycle of increasing someone's pay to retain them. And it's a short-term fix, because 6 to 12 months down the line, you'll be in the same place because you haven't solved the root nub of the problem, which is that feeling of feeling stuck or unchallenged. So, what we've done at Priory is a bit similar to what others have said. So we are trying to meet those hygiene factors with targeted pay strategy. So we have been able to match the real living wage outside of London for the last 2 years, but very similar to Rachael. We also then later in the year, around October, when we're in a better place to know what our performance and our funding has been, we're then able to look at more targeted pay uplifts as well. But what we've put front and centre in our strategic goals links into career development and that EVP piece. So it's about delivering that culture and making sure that the place you work delivers what you said on the tin when you interviewed people. But around career development, we've seen that as our sort of unique opportunity, because we're lucky at Priory that with the scale of our services and our national footprint, there's lots of opportunity to offer people chances to develop either personally or career-wise within their existing roles. So they don't have to move, they don't necessarily have to take on the responsibility of line management, but it's looking about what they would want to develop both personally as skills within themselves or within specialisms within their service lines, be that autism or eating disorders or addictions, mental health. And so we're trying to champion care as a career. And you'll have heard our CEO, Rebecca, speak about it at Care England events and things, that, we're actively promoting at every opportunity how valuable care is, because you're literally changing lives every single day, and it's making those values real day in, day out. And, we're proud that people did say in our survey, an increasing number, up 10%, that they felt they had the opportunity to learn new skills in their current role. But we just want to make that more of a reality. So we're developing this care as a career pathways so that people can see they've got a role in inducting new colleagues, coaching them to be their best. They can take part in our national networks so that they can contribute to improving our practice nationally. And that'll develop all personal skills like presentation, speaking skills, also helps with delivering training or coaching skills, which will be part of that package to help them develop personally. And you get that satisfaction of helping other people come along without maybe necessarily feeling the need to step into that management role. And it will come with a stipend, I think, in our case, but it's more about that recognition and job satisfaction rather than necessarily trying to link that to reward, because you can't always necessarily do that.
Yeah, totally agree in terms of the that need to create a breadth of opportunities for people, and not everyone wants to
Exactly.
a career path.
Yeah, and I mean, what we've found there as well is that's going to take some development for our line managers and leaders in services as well, because that visibility of those opportunities only happens if you're having meaningful conversations about development. And too often, I think one-to-ones can be a little bit operational, or you know, just dealing with the business as usual. But it's taking the time to understand what your people want, what is meaningful to them, and being honest about the opportunities for that, because sometimes that's going to be a tougher conversation about, well, that isn't available here, but if you could do X, Y, and Z, or we can make this work for you, we can make that happen in a different way. So we know there'll be something within our leadership development program as well about upskilling our managers to have those meaningful conversations at development time around PDRs and things like that as well.
Absolutely. And Amanda, I can see you've come off mute. I'm sure you've
totally agree with Jayne about the internal talent matrix. It isn't just about the professional development, it's the opportunities cross-divisionally across the business, even into a central role. And I think it's given individuals the opportunity to express their passion, their interests, and that it's a two-way communication. It isn't just what the business needs, it's about what that individual needs. And as I say, the talent matrix for us is something that's being rolled out. And it isn't just around the supervision, as you alluded to, about what's happening operationally. It's about that person and where they want to be in the future. And that all is key around the retention.
Absolutely.
We've changed some of our, and it just links in with what Jayne and Amanda have just said. And again, it goes back to these HR processes. So obviously we still do supervisions, but what we do is we mix it up a little bit. We have what we call just for me moments. So it's a just for me meeting. It's not done in an office, one person one side, one person another side. And actually the first thing we talk about in a just for me is values, and what you know, what our values are, and how that person is feeling aligned with our values, and what we could do to make them feel more aligned. But it is because just the terminology from supervision to just for me actually completely changed the focus, and people were more relaxed, people told us more, people felt that they had more of an opportunity and they felt special. It was their time. Supervision can be a word, it sounds like you're going to get told off a little bit, I think. So, you know, just language is so important in how we take this forward.
Absolutely agree. Our feedback was supervision came with negative connotations. It was about addressing the problem. It was not about talking about them as individuals and how we could support. I agree.
I was just going to add one thing. Something we have is our Aspire programme, and we put up to 200 people a year through that when we employ 7,000 people in Dimensions. We've got a lot of people. But that Aspire programme, anyone can be nominated by their manager to take part in it, and you might get coaching, you might get shadowing. It's all about helping you move to the next level. And actually we see a huge number of people that have gone through that Aspire programme, moving up to the next level in the organisation. So that's something that we find really helpful.
Brilliant. Conscious of time, a couple more questions I want to get through. A reminder to anyone who's on the call, if you do have questions, drop them into the Q&A and we will try to get round to them before we finish. As we're on Zoom, an early warning that it's set for a hard stop at the end of the diarised time. So just in case I'm in the middle of chatting and it just disappears, if it's 1 o'clock, that's meant to happen. But we'll see if we can be a bit smoother at the end before we get to that. Amanda, I just want to come to you with a question around you kind of the aspect of the report that talked about the volume of candidates who remove themselves from a process at the start of the process based upon their experience and their initial experience of that. So how can employers improve hiring processes and limit losing candidates at that first stage?
Well, as we all know, you never get a second chance at a first impression. So I think it's making a candidate feel valued from the onset, that they're committing time to you, so you're committing time to them. It's having a very clear process outline and being very honest and transparent about what a role actually requires. What resilience is someone going to need, and what values are they going to need? We all know, Rachel, you referred to medication and doing a drugs round or administering medication. That can be taught, that can be instructed. You can't teach someone to have a good heart. You can't teach someone to care. You can't give them that passion. So the values from the onset is key. The values of the business, the goals of the business, and the values for the young people and the strategy for the business. So making it very clear from onset. Clear information around their application process and why it potentially may take longer than another role because of Ofsted requirements and because of regulator expectations. And a high level of effective support throughout the process, that the recruitment team are very warm and excited, and there's actually operational involvement. It isn't just from a onboarding team or a recruiter, and making a candidate understand the benefits, the EVP and all the different aspects within the organisation. Very clear timelines about follow-up and any support that's needed. Because we referred to IT and data earlier, some people aren't comfortable using online platforms, so it's ensuring that support's being given, and making the process as streamlined and simple as is possible, and efficient and very engaging. But values for me is the key thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree on values. How, and this is an open question to anyone, how do we feel that the recruitment process is, notwithstanding the challenges that we have from a compliance and a legislation perspective that we all have to deal with, but the way we go to market to attract candidates and then engage with candidates in that early stage of the process, how do we feel they are in terms of being truly inclusive as a candidate experience? And by that I mean, are they designed in a way that make them accessible to people from different ethnicities, religious backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, neurodivergent people, etc., etc.?
I think we have to tap into every single market that we can, Brendan, because there's talent everywhere, but sometimes you have to be available to find it. One of the things, so a couple of organisations that we work quite closely with, one of them is called Purple 365. So what Purple do is it's an organisation that supports people with disabilities, whether visible or invisible disabilities, and they're just so inspirational. And they also do Purple 365 training afterwards, so to make sure that everybody's happy and comfortable and knows, we work with Open Indoors London, who work alongside over 50s with LGBTQ, and we have to sort of change our job adverts to make people feel comfortable. Colour palettes for people with neurodiversity is something that's there's evidence that if you're scrolling through on a phone, there's certain colours that will attract people, certain colours that don't. There's job boards out there that's just for the over 50s looking for work, part-time volunteers, a lot of volunteers on there as well. So I think we are such an inclusive sector, probably one of the most inclusive sectors, I think, but we just need to make sure that everybody knows and can be signposted. I think that's really important, because until I was told about these things, I didn't know either. So I think that's really important.
And we have a very diverse group of young people, children, pupils, adults who are within our facility. So that diversity is key to ensure that we meet all of their needs as well.
Absolutely, yes.
I think it's just about ensuring flexibility as well. It's really easy to just get stuck into your routine of applications must come via a particular source and in a particular format. And, I know we're guilty of that with the volume sometimes that you get. But, if you're seeing something in a candidate, then it's being flexible enough to get the best out of them. And you can't beat that personal touch at that point if that's someone that you think will add to your team. So yeah, it's trying not to let your systems and your technology blind you to that sometimes, I think.
Yeah, they have to be adaptable, don't they? I asked the question because I was party to a internal case study this week, which talked about fresh approaches Hayes were taking to support one of our big customers, AstraZeneca, in terms of their recruitment, and it really kind of stoked my interest in terms of what was happening with them and how that might be able to produce better outcomes if applied appropriately within the care sector. Yeah, Angela, good to hear that kind of you're already looking at different routes to market to identify certain demographics. I don't know if you had anything to add to that, Rachael.
I think it's things like we're disability confident employer, so actually we guarantee an interview to anybody who meets the minimum criteria. When we get to the level of locality manager and above, again, if you meet the essential criteria and you're from a black minority ethnic background, you're guaranteed an interview. So we do some of those things. I think we do quite a lot once we have people in the organisation in terms of tools for people who are dyslexic and those sorts of things. But I've just learned quite a lot from listening to my colleagues in the room here about the things they do. So to Amanda's point earlier, it's good to share ideas.
Yes, it certainly is. And as we come to the end here, I just want to focus in on what kind of a linked point here, which is, yeah, kind of as organisations are being more proactive in targeting specific demographics. I think the two that jumped out in the report were the over 50s and the under 30s. How does that impact? How can it impact, and what needs to be considered when developing an EVP that appeals to two, quite frankly, different age groups and delivers against what those groups need in a way that drives retention? I'll come to you, Angela.
Okay. Again, I think it's about listening and asking that question of what's important to you. What's important to one person, actually relevance of the generational gap is completely different. People, all people are different, but we've done a lot of work on trying to get younger people into the sector at Majesticare. So I've sort of, we're spending time talking to schools and colleges and trying to grab people young, because one of the things I did recently was it was a question time for a group of students, and when they were all health and social care students, and they were all going in either NHS or social work. Sorry, none of them were looking at a career in social care. So. But when we ask our younger generation, sort of our under 30s, what it is that they want, actually, there's a lot of it around ESG and what are we a sustainable organisation? Are we making a difference in the communities? Supporting charities, particularly local charities. So what we've done now is each home, they get to choose a local charity that they support, and then we match fund and things like that. And we've set up something called a Majesticare grant, which our team can request each month. It's only £250, but basically they can use that to go and support a local charity, a local football team, just something within the community. And our young people, our under 30s, are telling us that they want to know whether we recycle and how we do it and what happens to the waste. But the social aspect of ESG seems to be really, really important to our under 30s. So certainly for us, that's the feedback that we're getting for the under 30 generation.
We found exactly the same, which actually aligns very much to our young people and children and the need for ESG. So I would totally agree, Angela.
Yeah, I'd agree about the ESG, but we're just starting off actually a big piece of work around the environmental stuff and what we can do on that, and actually for people we support as well. Because often they want to do more and they don't realise what more they need to do. So I think it is a really important agenda for people. In terms of the recruitment experience, one of the things that we've done recently is introduce a text system that allows us to have a text exchange with candidates, and that proves very popular with our younger applicants, because that's the way that they're used to communicating and engaging. So it's also been, back to the EDI question, it's also really beneficial for some of our deaf candidates, because actually they can't take a telephone call from the recruitment team. So we found that a really good innovation across a number of groups of people.
It sounds like there's a lot of iterative things we can do which have small impacts, but collectively have a greater impact. It'll come as no surprise for you to hear that exactly the same focus on social value, social impact, sustainability is something that that's a journey we've been on as an organisation. So I think it's all part of the way the working world is going at the moment. Interesting. We kind of in terms of the volunteering and the charitable support. We're in the second year at Hayes of a partnership with an organisation called Neighbourly, who provide volunteering opportunities. So charities can sign up to get corporates into volunteer, and that was super successful for us last year in terms of engaging that aspect of our employees' experience. So there's loads of good stuff going on outside of care that obviously care providers could certainly we could do a better job at making you guys aware of what we see. So that's a point to myself to follow up on. We're drawing to a close. I wish we had more time to carry on discussing things. Just a couple of things I want to cover off before we do close. So you'll see on your screen there how you can access the full findings. So visit the URL hayes.co.uk/salary-guide/salary-care. Make your request there, and we'll make arrangements to get you access to the full report. On the topic of celebrating success and collaboration, which have come up here, if we can move on a slide, I just wanted to share some events that we have in the diary, which hopefully do both things. We work quite closely with the National LD&A Awards and the National CYP Awards, which I know a lot of people will be familiar with. I'm hosting a series of leadership networking dinners at the times and locations you can see in front of you. They're in March, it's LD&A focused. In May, it's children's services focused. And we've got dinners in Leeds, Birmingham and Manchester. So if there's any leaders in those sectors who want to come along and join us, the free events, they're very informal. It's an opportunity for you to connect with other leaders over dinner for a few hours in the evening, make those connections, have those conversations, and so it'd be great if you can join us. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow someone from Hayes on LinkedIn, and you'll see plenty of information about this. If you do wish to attend and bring some of your colleagues, that'd be great. Aside from that, I think that draws us completely to an end. I'd like to once again thank Angela, Rachael, Jayne and Amanda for joining us. I've really enjoyed listening to the examples you brought to life, and it sounds like amongst yourselves you've learned bits from each other, which is one of the aims of these sessions. So good to see learning in action as we go along. Please do put a request in to find the full guide, and we'll get them out to you as quickly as we can. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.